Okay, afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming today for this talk on crossing the GenAI chasm from potential to real-world impact. Before we go into the talk itself, maybe just a quick show of hands. How many of you are first time in NUS ISS? Okay, quite a lot of people actually. So maybe just a brief introduction of who we are. We are part of NUS, but we are non-academic, all right? We are staffed by industry practitioners. I myself is formerly from the government, HDB, and also Ministry of National Development. Then my colleagues, we come from many places, private sector like Amazon, Lazada, Grab, etc., as well as startups and also other government agencies. What we do here, we don't target undergraduates, we don't do basic degrees, we target working professionals. So what we have are executive programs, short courses, etc., as well as master's degrees. And the good thing is these two are now stackable from the executive programs all the way to the master's degrees, all right? And they are NUS master's degrees. And within NUS ISS itself, we have a wide scope of domain expertise. We have the deep tech, analytics, software engineering, AI, etc., IoT. Then we also have the transformation processes necessary to exploit all this technology. We have leadership training, we have governance, cybersecurity, data management, all these aspects, right? So wide scope, all in-house. Plus, in addition, we also have our ecosystem of adjuncts to help us. And we are a not-for-profit entity. We were founded in the same year that the predecessor of the current GovTech and IMDA. At that time, anyone knows what is the predecessor called when it was first founded of IMDA and GovTech? Starts with the letter N. Anybody? National Computer Board. I think the audience here are all very young, have not heard of this before. So when the government created IT agency, it was called National Computer Board. It was created by one of our most innovative PERMSECs, Mr. Philip Yeo. In the same year he created NCB, he also created ISS, and that was not a coincidence. We were created to complement NCB because the NCB was created to do a major computerization program for the government first, and then subsequently to try and also bring up for the whole industry in Singapore. But they were lacking in IT professionals at that time. So ISS was created by the government, put into NUS, and also with a partnership with IBM to kickstart the place. And we created a program where we could take non-IT grads, convert them into IT professionals within 1 year, inclusive of a 5-month internship. So the moment they came out, they could hit the ground running. And to this day, our mission is to support industry and professional development agendas, and we've been around for 40 plus years. Not only running our own academy, but in the last 5 years, we have also been helping GovTech to run its GovTech Digital Academy. Right. A bit of myself. The main thing is, yes, I am involved with the GovTech Digital Academy. I head our NUS ISS team, which are helping them in running their academy. In addition, I'm also a lecturer consultant within NUS ISS, where I cover digital transformation maturity workshops for CEOs and their leadership teams. We have done this with certain organizations. They come here then, and as well as I also teach in the Masters of Technology in Digital Leadership, and that's where I cannot escape from GenAI. So I've been covering how GenAI can help in their digital transformation, but what are the things that they need to watch out for as the leaders, and how to get the ROI out of it, which leads to today's topic. in many organizations, the way that they do GenAI implementation is perhaps if they are on Microsoft, they have Office 365. Microsoft tells them, look, I've implemented Copilot GenAI. It comes complete with ChatGPT inside because they invested in OpenAI. And more recently, they have invested. Anybody knows who Microsoft recently invested in and incorporated into their Copilot? A name that starts with the letter A that is very much in the news, either A or C. Claude, Anthropic, yes, because if you have been following Microsoft's business news, you'll find that yes, initially there was a spike of people who took up Copilot subscription. It's not part and parcel of Office 365. You need to add on extra money to get Copilot. So initially there was a spike. Then over time it dropped until it dropped quite drastically. So Microsoft, and now it seems that Anthropic and Claude is very much more usable for a lot of things. So Microsoft invested heavily and are putting in a lot of Claude functionality into Copilot, right? But most agencies, most organizations, what they do is, okay, I subscribe everybody to Copilot, make an announcement by email to say, congratulations, now you also have Copilot in your Office 365. Just proceed to do good things and let the organization bear the benefits of it. What do you think results in the end? This is basically what results. Most organizations find that they do not get returns from the amount of money they pay Microsoft or whichever for the usage of the GenAI. And this survey, quite recent in January this year, asked the CEOs, do you think the future will be better? Given a bit more time, do you think the ROI will come in? But the answer was that they will still struggle to turn AI investment into a tangible return. And you will notice that this is not just something of interest to the private sector. In the public sector, our government has put much emphasis into this. So recently in Parliament, our president also highlighted that Singapore faces this AI challenge and we need to meet the challenge accordingly. Sorry, this was in Davos, the global conference of all the top leaders of both governments and industry. So the president mentioned this in the budget debate. Likewise, it was also highlighted by the prime minister to the extent that now we have a subsidy to take courses, which would end up giving us subscription to paid Gen AI platforms. However, my neighbor told me she went for such a course. And unfortunately, yes, it is, you have subscription to it, but with a very small quota of tokens to use. Then after that, you have to pay your own. So yeah. So this is the problem, all right? This is the situation, this is the problem. So what do you think is the solution? So at the end of this talk and the panel discussion, we'll go dive deeper into this with the, don't worry, at the end of this talk, there'll be a survey. As long as you fill in the survey, we will send a PDF of this to you. So you can not bother with the taking screenshots. So at the end of this, we will, you will get to cover all these areas, so I won't go into the detail now. But the main thing is that what we are doing is first covering these 4 aspects of the issues, and then what are the solutions to it. So the first one is that you get an ROI for the individual. When the companies give their staff Gen AI, do you think the staff are happy or unhappy if they are left free to use the Gen AI as they please? Do you all use Gen AI in your work? Are you quite happy with it if the boss don't tell you exactly what to do with the Gen AI, leave it to you to use Gen AI as you please? Quite okay, right? I see most people nodding their head. So what happens usually is, yes, the study has shown for an individual, definitely there'll be maybe half your tasks could be accelerated using Gen AI. So that means for the individual, free time, there definitely is free time that you enjoy, okay? And I think most of you smile and say, yeah, I do get that free time. So the question is, how is it that your organization is not getting any benefit of your increased productivity? There are two reasons for it. There's this famous law called Parkinson's law, which states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. It's human nature. It's also the manager's nature, okay? So you will, if you are lucky, if your organization is lucky, you will end up being more productive. But a lot of times, when we get the free time, we end up being busy, be more busy. What do we do with the Gen AI? We make better slides. I didn't use, as you can see, my slides are not very polished, so you can tell I didn't use Gen AI for it. But what happens in a lot of organizations is, yes, the person now can create the slide very fast, then he will spend the time to fiddle with the prompts to get an even better slide, and then all the time is wasted running round and round, but still in the end, at the end of the time, getting one chestnut. I think it's chestnut, right? Yeah, one chestnut. Instead of using the free time to increase his productivity, previously he can only do one chestnut in a day. He should be getting 3 chestnuts at the end of the day. There are other people whose other alternative is this, and this was reported, especially in the earlier days of work from home. The individual is very smart. He realized the work that he can do today, that he needs to do, he can complete in 1/3 the time. So he has the 2/3 of the day is totally free from him. So what does he do? He go and take on 2 more free full-time jobs and earn 3 times his normal pay. These are real cases that has happened. All right. Then of course there's a third option which I didn't draw here. You just don't be busy. You quickly finish your work in 1/3 of the day, and the rest of the day, if you work from home, you just laze around, watch your Chinese drama or whatever. Okay, and I see a lot of people nodding their heads. Okay, so that is the problem of just buying the tool, launching it to all your staff, and telling them, and make use of it, do good work, and hope for the best that your organization will reap the benefits. It normally does not happen. Okay, and this is the reason why it normally does not happen. And all of you are nodding your head because from your own personal example or those of your colleagues, you know this is the case. All right, so how to overcome it? This is what is known as benefits realization. A company need to harvest the benefits in some way. And there are 2 primary ways in which companies harvest the benefits of Gen AI. First method is, of course, all of you have heard this type of news before. They will lay off the staff. So Salesforce, a company with software that allows companies to not have to build their own, but the package comes ready. They started off with customer relationship management, but now has gone into a lot of other business functions also. They have a call center, and they managed to cut from 9,000 people to 5,000 people in their call center, and the savings is 4,000 people. So to realize that savings in hard cash, they lay them off. All right. I had a CFO in the past. When our users have to justify for the IT department to develop a computer system, they will come up with cost savings. They say, oh, your computer system will help us save so much manpower. Then when we presented to the CFO say, does that mean the staff will be cut and my payroll will be reduced, the payroll budget? Then when the user department said no, then you say, in that case, there's no saving. So a lot of commercial companies especially are very commercial-minded, very practical in terms of this area, and that is one way in which they will realize the benefits from AI. But to the Singapore government, is that what it once happened? And also to you as an employee, I don't think that is what you want to want happen. So the better example would be IKEA. What it did was same situation, it can reduce the number of call center staff, but it was creative. It thought, what can I do with this staff? Do I just want to get a dollar saving from the budget cut in the payroll, or can I get extra revenue from this instead? So what they did was they retrained them to be interior design advisors and then help them out with some AI-powered tools. And in Singapore, you can always visit IKEA very easily. They're not too far away. But in Europe, where this scheme was started, there are people who live in the countryside quite far from the nearest IKEA. And IKEA has a business where you can order and they deliver to your house in the countryside. So to complement that, they now add on an interior design service. And through this interior design service, they estimate they will get an extra $1.4 billion revenue because of it. The interior design service for IKEA is not that expensive. Where do you think it earns the money from for this type of interior design service? Yeah, you get more sale of your furniture that you put into your interior design. The interior design comes with condition, and I think how you know what is the condition. All the furnishing inside is all based on IKEA furniture, right? And if you're doing a kitchen interior decoration, then the cabinets and all that would be IKEA's, and that is super expensive also. I mean, still cheaper than other options, but it will earn IKEA a lot of money, all right? So it's $1 billion additional revenue from them. So is this something that is easy to come up with? Have other organizations done it before IKEA? The answer is probably IKEA is among the pioneers. It may not be the very, very first, but it's not very well known, this way of doing things. And they are probably among the first few to use this way to benefit from GenAI. Okay. What does it take to come up with such? Is this idea good or not? Does it synergize with the existing business? It does, right? Because it helps you generate demand for your furniture. Previously, the countryside person without interior decoration service would say, oh, okay, I just need a cheap chair and table, that's it, from IKEA, and just order that. But then with an interior design service, maybe the interior designer can show the farmer's wife, you see, if I put this furniture here and get this other thing here and some decoration here, it looks so nice for your country home. And the wife will tell the husband, yeah, please buy. Okay, so you earn more money out of it, all right? So it synergizes with their existing business. Does it fit well with the existing staff skill set and aptitudes to give them a good chance of transiting? That is a very difficult part in retraining and redeploying existing staff in organization, right? You have to see whether you can transform them into the new role. And a lot of it depends on, do they have relevant existing skills that are usable in the new role, relevant existing aptitude, the way of thinking, behaving, is it relevant to their new role, such that it will give a good chance of successful transition. It's no point you retrain everyone, they go to the new role, and either the customers are not happy because they can't perform in the new role, or the staff themselves are not happy because they feel they can't really do well in the new role. In this case, do you think call center staff in IKEA have the right aptitude, the right way of thinking and behaving to work, to do reasonably well in the new role? Why do you all think so? What do they normally do in the old role as a call center? They talk, right? They talk to the customer. So they're quite used to talking to a customer. And a lot of times, any of you involved in hiring call center staff before, what do you look out for call center staff? What quality do you look for when you try to hire them. Pleasant voice, yeah, correct. They must have pleasant voice, yeah, and very patient, able to talk well, and worse still in a call center role where more of the time is complaints, then you know how to calm the customer down and so on. So they will be very ideal to transition to neuro because the neuro also involves talking well to the customer, etc. Yeah. So on top of that, there's another then existing skill set which they have is they are very, very familiar with the existing product line in IKEA. So that is also something very transferable to the new role. The only thing that is missing is I think a lot of them are not born interior designers. I will also fail. My art, I got D when I was in primary, secondary school. So but with Gen AI nowadays, you have seen before all those Gen AI created graphics, etc. So similarly for interior decoration, it does a reasonable job. You will get something better than a D grade art student now. Yeah. So that is a nice complement between the two, the human existing aptitude and skill and the Gen AI assistance. But is it easy to find such use cases in your company, for example? Not so straightforward, yeah. So you have to be, so in order to be able to come up with such good use cases, you need skills in business model transformation, knowing what are new ways in which your company can earn money, which perhaps has never existed before in your industry or other industries. And then the other aspect is having knowledge of service design, product management to allow you to understand from the customer what works, what doesn't work, and then product management to know how to do iteration, MVP, betas, to experiment quickly and scale up once things are proven to be successful. So so it's not just knowing Gen AI, throw to the people, train them in the tool, and expect a miracle to happen. All these other things will come in. So what we've covered so far is ROI, individual definitely will get time freed up, but how do you realize the benefit and translate it to an organizational benefit? The lazy way is just cut staff, but better still if you can apply all those other skills to find ways to generate revenue out of it and also help the staff to transition to new roles. The government will be very happy if your organization can help in this respect, because otherwise all the companies will just retrench staff and it becomes the government's problem to try and find new jobs for them. Okay, so second problem that that causes companies not to be able to get an ROI out of Gen AI is the fact that Gen AI is not perfect. It is not like the old days of classical IT systems where after I have tested the system and confirmed it is working correctly, I just leave it be 100% guaranteed it will be the same behavior. It will always be correct if it was tested correct initially and nothing has been changed. And you can leave it alone. You get 0%, zero human needed to monitor and maintain the system other than the IT people. In Gen AI, that is not the case. There's this thing called, starting with the letter H, which is hallucination, right? I think all of you are familiar with hallucination. Gen AI is part of its nature. The word Gen AI, the Gen is generative. It is part of the nature of Gen AI to try to guess. And then if it is not confident, it will still guess and give you some answer. And worse still, a lot of times it is trained and to be confident in the way it presents its responses. So you'll be very confidently tell you a lie or tell you things that are not true, right? And this was what happened in the very early days of Gen AI. Air Canada used Gen AI in their chatbot, and it wrongly told a customer that there was certain discounts or whatever for his family member, and so he based on that to take action, to buy ticket, etc. And then later found out it's not true. And luckily he had the screenshot or whatever, and they went to court, and the court said, Air Canada cannot just push the blame to the GenAI. The GenAI is as good as your employee or your IT system. You are responsible for it. And then you have to pay the damage to that person. So as a result, you need anti-hallucination measures. And a lot of time, the anti-hallucination measures cost money. A lot of times, it also may involve human beings, which is even more expensive. So BCG, a consulting firm, highlights that a lot of times you do need a human in the loop to check the result of the GenAI before you pass it on to your actual customer. So how do you try to lessen the impact of hallucinations and so on? The best way is no man in the loop. Then you don't incur any cost at all. And I think you are all familiar with this. You probably have gone to chatbots where there is a disclaimer to say that the AI can make mistakes. Please check important information. This chatbot uses GenAI. Responses may be inaccurate, verify with official sources. So basically, these are legal disclaimers. You use it at your own risk. But most of us are willing to use it because we know that it's much easier than trying to Google for ourselves and searching and so on. And then at the most, once we become more familiar, hopefully they provide a link to where it claims the data comes from. We click the link, go there, and verify that it's true. Right? So slowly we are being trained in this. You will notice that not all government agencies have moved to this. GovTech has two versions of this chatbot. One is GenAI, one is non-GenAI. Non-GenAI is a very painful process to train and for use in an organization. You have to tell it every single detail of what type of question you ask, then what type of answer will be given. You'll find that HDB is one example where they have decided not to go into GenAI version of the chatbot. I worked in HDB before. You will find that there are high volume of complaints happen whenever things don't go smoothly for a HDB customer. And HDB has 80% of the population as its customers. So you can imagine the volume of complaints if people use a GenAI version and wrong answers are given. Yes, you may have a disclaimer, but people will still not care. They'll still complain, right? And the investment decision can be very large. It is their biggest investment in their life. So with a wrong error, it's very impactful to them. I would think also for all the hospital chatbots, etc., unless it's on administrative matters, otherwise medical things, I don't think they will use GenAI. Okay. So your company, likewise, you have to think through, do you want to use a disclaimer? This one was arising from a master's degree student that I had. He asked, what is a possible use case for GenAI in the insurance company? So I told him, they already use AI, but not a GenAI type of AI. There is this thing called rule-based expert, which is the pain to use. You have to write every single rule, but it's an AI because it's smart enough to scan through all the rules and see which is the best fit, etc. So they already have rules-based AI that can tell whether a claim can be legally allowed or not. And then, but I asked them, then what do you do? Because I also know that I have made certain claims before, and the insurance company tell me, sorry, based on our rules, actually, I don't need to pay you anything. However, because your sob story is so convincing, I'm willing to give you these few dollars as a goodwill payment. All right. So this thing does happen. And human being is worse still because a human being has to read through the story to see whether it's emotionally appealing. And usually they will also check, if this person complains and writes a letter to the press, writes to the MP, will the MP feel obliged to have to appeal, do something, then likely they'll give goodwill payment. So there's this type of judgment required. But I told him this is the area where likely you can just throw the GenAI to do the work and no need to have a human being. So you really do have 100% savings in the manpower. But my question to you is, what happens if you make the wrong if the AI makes a wrong judgment, don't give out any goodwill payment? Is there any problem? What do you think? Legally, is there any problem that it doesn't give out payment? It's no problem, right? I see a lot of you shaking your head because legally there's no basis for the claim. It's just a goodwill payment to get people to be happier with the service and stick with your company. And also, more importantly, it doesn't generate into a social media issue where everybody feels, wow, you're very unfair and so on. Anyone can remember a recent case that happened that was even commented on by ministers or whoever? Which company was that? Insurance company. Which insurance company? Income. There was a claim that somebody claimed, and then they say, oh, based on the rule, actually, we cannot, you cannot claim for the insurance as an ambulance transport, even though the medical claim is okay. And then various other claims also, like in the end, a lot of things were not paid. And then this thing went all the way up, a lot of press, negative press to income on this. And even the minister stepped in to say, yeah, it's not very fair. Not saying not fair, but it's not very sensitive to the person and so on. So it was more a case of a goodwill payment that wasn't handled well, right? So, but legally, actually, they had not much problem in that sense. But for small amounts, so basically, if the claim is small and the goodwill payment is small, you can have guardrails in this sense that you only do this with the GenAI for smaller payments. And you'll be surprised in most insurance companies, the 80% of the claims are not the big claims, it's the small claims, and yet they suck up most of your manpower. So this is where GenAI really can give you savings, all right? So this is how you cater for this type of use cases. Then the other way of doing it is don't use GenAI at all if there's a better tool to use, right? If you ask your GenAI, in this case I'm using Copilot, ChatGPT or Claude, and I asked it, what type of problem I give you will cause you are likely to hallucinate? And it answered truthfully. If you give it a maths problem, it will likely hallucinate. And it was even kind enough to give me a specific example. What is the exact prime factorization of this number? So what did I do? I throw the problem to him. And then, as he mentioned, he will hallucinate unless I explicitly compute or check with a tool. So that's what he did. He checked with a tool, and the tool he used was Python. All right. And Python is a programming language, but more importantly, within the programming language, it has lots of different libraries of different functionality, and there are plenty of libraries that deal with statistics, mathematics, and so on. So he just used the actual SIMPy, I think, is used for mathematics. So with that, he could do the maths problem correctly, right? But my question to you is there still possible hallucination when the GenAI makes use of another tool? Will there be hallucination if the GenAI use another tool? The tool that is non-GenAI, where does the hallucination come from? Yeah, wrong command to the tool. The tool will just act based on whatever command you give it. If the command is correct, yes, the tool is guaranteed 100% to give you the correct answer. However, it is GenAI giving the command to the tool. In fact, in this case, it is GenAI generating the programming lines of code. All the program code is generated by GenAI. And if it generates wrongly, the code, what it calculates for you for the maths problem will be wrong. So yes, it helps, but there's still a percentage of possibility that there will still be hallucination, right? Okay, as a summary, the first case was we use we are using no man in the loop, which either you use a disclaimer, you find a use case that so what will happen if the GenAI cause a problem? They are like the goodwill payment case, then you can have no man in the loop. And finally, don't use GenAI where you can, all right? Then you can be very assured, I don't need to have a man in the loop. But if you do need to have a man in the loop, then there are 6 things that you can do to try and minimize the effort in that and get some productivity gains and dollar savings from it. One, so I pull out the 6 items bigger. And the first thing that you can do is to use the right appropriate Gen AI for the task. So if I ask you among these various LLMs, which one would you use if I told you to use one of them for research purpose? Or your son, your daughter is going to do research for her school project, which one would you recommend her to use? Perplexity, right? I see some people forming the words in their mouth. Yes. Okay. When Perplexity first came out, it was among the first to use RAG, which is basically, it will not base on its training data, because the training data is always few months back or even 1 year old. It had the capability to go to the internet and be like Google search, really find the latest information. And its Gen AI is more to help you summarize the finding from the internet. So it was the first tool to do that, and that was their differentiator, which it still tries to keep that as their strong point. However, having said that, the distinction is not very clear nowadays, because all the other tools realize, yeah, that is a weakness in them, and all of them are fighting back. And so you'll find that the positioning of all the tools will keep changing. It's a race among them. They will win. This tool will win for this time in this particular area of strength. Then the next time, another tool will win out. So this selection of tool is not as critical as in the past. However, having said that, the very fact that Microsoft invested billions of dollars in Anthropic shows that Anthropic now is sort of winning quite a lot of the race. So the next few slides actually become more important rather than the selection of tool. So once you select the tool, the other things that become important is which data do you use for your Gen AI to work on, and then how do you write the prompt so that it doesn't hallucinate as much. So the data, nowadays, you'll find almost all the tools allow you to have a plus where you click, you can upload documents and all that. So what you upload becomes very important to reduce the hallucination. And then on top of that, you must prompt it, please use only the document. And if you are not sure, please state very clearly, and please give me a quotation or link to exactly where you found the evidence. Right? All this will help to reduce the hallucination. Then you don't need to check so much, hopefully. Then the other thing is certain tools have configuration settings that allow you to tell it how much hallucination you want to allow, but there's no such thing as zero hallucination. So even though you may change the temperature to the lowest, that does not mean it will not hallucinate. It will still hallucinate. It is part of the gen in the Gen AI. Okay, it cannot not hallucinate, right? It's just that you might reduce it a bit. So 2 things, your data, your prompting, and your configuration all will help. Okay. Then the next thing is, in your task that you want to do, some parts of it may need Gen AI, but a lot of times certain other parts may be done better with non-Gen AI. And now it becomes possible for you to combine non-Gen AI with Gen AI automatically without having to manually do step 1 in a non-Gen AI tool, then step 2 in a Gen AI, then step 3 back into a non-Gen AI. One aspect is your normal ChatGPT, as you saw earlier. Most of the tools now will be able to generate Python code and run it for things that it knows the Gen AI is not ideal for. Okay, so already within your existing tools, they can handle some aspects of this. But those existing tools, a lot of time will have certain limitations. They cannot access your email, they cannot access your Teams drive, etc., etc. So because of that, there's this thing called agentic AI, where the tool will be able to create different tasks to run using either Gen AI or non-Gen AI. So for example, A and B can be Gen AI, and C could be non-Gen AI. And then similarly here, you got a mix of AI and non-Gen AI. Even for this, you have to have an idea or be careful. There are two ways of getting it. You can get the Gen AI to decide and plan and link everything together, or you can create your own. There's a tool called Microsoft Copilot Studio, where it actually has both options. You can let it generate itself, or you can manually create the flow chart and say, for this step, use Gen AI, for this step, use this particular tool, etc. Right? Ideally, if you can do this, especially if it's a repeatable task used for very critical things, this will reduce the hallucination a bit, because this can hallucinate in how it arranges, manages the task, and so on. Right? But the main principle is don't use Gen AI for everything. See where is it that non-Gen AI can do a better job, and then you mix them together, combine them in the best way possible. Going back to the IKEA example, so likely one of the ways in which IKEA will provide the tool to this is not the actual tool that they give to their call center interior designer, but I'm very sure they incorporated certain aspect of this tool in that final tool. The aspect that I'm talking about is the fact that it will not let the Gen AI generate products on its own, okay? The products that the interior designer have, yes, they may be a prompt and say, come up with a nice design, maybe Japanese, what is the Japanese minimalist design called? There's a name for it. Sorry? Japandi, yeah, Japandi, yeah. So you might prompt, I want a Japandi design, and this is my HDB flat layout, and then Gen AI will help itself to generate the Japandi design for you. But what I'm very sure the call center product will do, they will tap from this existing product tool that IKEA already has. It will definitely link it to their IKEA catalog, where the dimensions 3/4 by 27.5 inch is already configured nicely, and Gen AI is not supposed to imagine and hallucinate on the dimension. So that, for example, this picture that I have here, if I want to change it instead of portrait to landscape and different picture, I just click and you notice the picture has changed. And because it is non-Gen AI, it's building based on the actual catalog of IKEA with the actual dimensions, you will not worry about wrong things happening. Okay? So likely that is what they'll do. They'll combine their Gen AI generation prompting for Japandi design together with their catalog of objects, so that there will not be problem of Gen AI hallucinating non-existent IKEA product. Okay, finally, you might still need a man in the loop, but can you reduce his workload? How many of you actually do software coding before? Are you anybody? Okay, most of you are. All right, one. All right. So in the software coding world, there already exists non-Gen AI tools called static code analyzer. Basically, they will read the code in your they will read the code uh, in your program, and then flag out issues such as this code is not secure, it will cause a cybersecurity problem, etc. And these static code analyzers, the classical ones make use of human-created rules, like if code contains goto, flag use of goto is not allowed. So the code will be fed in, the rules will check against the code, and then if, say, the code was generated by by GenAI and it had the goto, then this static code analyzer will flag out the GenAI created goto and say, no, this one is not allowed. So there are such tools available. And in fact, like GovTech, they are now trying to go heavily into vibe coding, but this is one of the major efforts that they are trying to do. Find all the tools available that can help to do the checking and minimize the effort of the human in the loop to do the final review of the code. Because they realize no point having the user able to vibe code, but end up the software engineer still has to spend so much time checking the code to see whether it works or not and whether there are security problems. You will find the same happening for MOE. You may not realize, but actually MOE teachers already use GenAI to help them with marking your students, your child's marks for certain tests and so on. Maybe at least the first cut of the marking is done by GenAI. Okay, but MOE includes other tools after the GenAI to try and counter check that the marking is correct and things like that. Okay, so rest assured, it is not totally no checking lah. The human in the loop is there, but there are also tools to help the human in the loop. Okay, then finally, the man in the loop needs to do the checking, but if he has no training, he will have no idea how to check, how to optimize his time in checking, where to look for problems, and so on. So in the software coding world, because we will throw, there are tools for already doing functional tests. The IT team themselves will write test cases which are thrown into the testing tool that will automatically run the test and confirm, okay, functionally it seems okay. Then likewise, the user will also do similarly. And so testing of the function is probably not the main worry, also because the user finally has to sign and say, yeah, I accept, I've tested and accept the functionality of the system. So the main thing that the human reviewer is worried about is the code will cause poor performance. It works, but when a lot of people start to use the system, the whole thing crashes, okay? Or poor error handling. In normal cases, normal scenario, yes, it works smoothly, but somebody key in some rubbish, the thing don't know how to handle, and the whole thing crashes, all right? Poor maintainability, the code works, but any IT coder looking at the code will say, I don't understand what it's trying to do. The way they name everything doesn't make sense, okay? And last one is the architecture. The way the code is, the different programs are arranged and so on, makes it difficult to make changes in the future, etc. Right? So these are likely the type of areas that the person needs to be trained on to know how to check. So in different functionality, that would be the same also. Okay, and finally, this is a cheat code, okay? Can you transfer the human in the loop from your own staff to other people instead, like the customer, okay? So in the case of IKEA, do you think the call center interior designer needs to check before he passes the work to the customer if it is an interactive session? Because the wonderful thing about ChatGPT is, of GenAI, is you could have, if the LLM is powerful enough, you could have an interactive session. The person say, I want a Japanese design. He prompted Japanese design. Something comes out. He may not have time to check. The customer will already tell him, no, this one, can you change this? Can you change that? So the human in the loop effort is passed on to the customer itself already, right? So basically, you have a choice of no man in the loop. That's the best to have the maximum saving. You may have no choice sometimes to have a man in the loop. Then the next option is to use this 6 method to reduce their effort. And the next option is find a use case where the man in the loop is already pre-existing, is already mandated, and your use of GenAI actually doesn't increase any costs. Any one of you know of such a use case where man in the loop checking is very intensive, is already part of the process, and you don't need to, and if you add in GenAI, it doesn't really increase any costs for man in the loop. There is this process, drug approval process, whether in Singapore, whether in the US, around the world, is quite similar. If you all remember the pandemic vaccination news, when the new vaccination was rushed through in Singapore, did they immediately take the vaccination and start injecting every one of us? No, right? It still had to go through an accelerated process, but there's still this process that happens. Generally, the process is animal testing, then phase 1 testing where you only have 20 to 80 people to try out the medicine, then phase 2, 100 plus, phase 3, 1,000 over, etc., etc. So the man in the loop is mandated by regulation already. So when GenAI comes in for the first part, to find possible new drugs, it doesn't add anything to the cost. The cost of the man in the loop is already there. It just speeds up the process, and the drug companies are happier. We are happier in the sense that hopefully all sorts of diseases will now have a medicine to be able to cure us, right? Time-wise, I will carry on a bit more to finish all the slides before we have our panel discussion. Okay, so in summary, you either have no man in the loop, if that is possible, that's the best, or you have a man in the loop, in which case you need to try to reduce the effort and cost as much as possible. Or if you are in an industry which can be lucky enough to find use case where man in the loop is regulated, mandated, and it doesn't give cost extra to throw in GenAI at the front end, then that is also a very good choice, use case. Okay, so people have implemented nicely either no man in the loop or minimized man in the loop, or the human check is already there, but yet they still find they don't get ROI from it. Why is that so? One of the reasons could be this. Before, for the GenAI, it works successfully. Before GenAI is a single lane road. After GenAI, you suddenly open that task to become a 3-lane road, and now much more traffic can flow through. But they forgot that the process is not just one task. It's task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, task 5. And somewhere further down, it is still a 1-lane road. So you open up a 3-lane road here. At the end, what is the customer getting? He's still getting the slow traffic out because of that 1-lane road further down. It's a bottleneck, right? So how do you get around this? So basically, it is no shortcut. You cannot just use GenAI in one task in an end-to-end process and expect the whole end-to-end process to immediately be better, right? You must think through the whole end-to-end process. Where else will there be bottlenecks? And a lot of times, the bottlenecks arise because in many organizations, our different applications are all silo. They don't really talk to each other. So for one system to talk to another, a lot of manual effort. Is involved in passing the data over from one to another, and this may be the bottlenecks which you have to also resolve, right? Okay, then there is the issue of having to the transformation. I earlier talked about having to having to come up with new ideas, right? So we need to have, to do that, we have a lot of things to do. You need to create a structure and support for transformation, and so that people are willing to start experimenting. Then in order for them to experiment, you must be able to have a process that they can do experimentation, such that if they fail, it's no big deal to the organization. So things like how to iterate, how to ideate, how to come up with MVPs, betas, and then finally, once the MVPs or betas show that things are working, how to scale and build on the success, and then continual improvement and streamlining. So we'll come back to that slide later. This one you will have in the PDF, which will send to you, so I won't go to the details. So these are some courses that can help in the different areas. Their placement roughly tell you which aspect of this framework they will help in. And with that, we will come to the panel discussion. Let me quickly introduce our panel speakers and first invite them up. Can our three, Dr. Ivan, Lynn, and Adrian. Yeah, please. Let me do a quick introduction to them. Okay. Dr. Ivan has 23 years of experience in many different areas of IT, and especially in AI and cybersecurity. He has worked for the European Commission, Deloitte, Unisys, and is currently VP, Head of AI Cyber Security Center of Excellence in ST Engineering. So he works closely, of course, in this type of roles, he works closely with business leaders, operational teams, and the government to transform with AI. Lynn is the head of AI at Obello. It's a company that uses AI to do creative work, generate videos, images for advertisement, social media marketing, etc. Right? She has a master's in AI systems. He also has side social work in mental health communities and AI research. And Adrian is from Snowflake, which is a AI data cloud company. So you can see from that, his company, they are involved in AI, especially in relation to the use of data, so data science, etc. We will learn more from him how all of them use AI in their companies, and then what are the issues that they overcome to get the ROI out of it. So we'll use this as the framework, and the QR code there is for you all to submit questions of your own. But I will start with my own question first. So maybe start with ladies first. Is it okay? Maybe you can. So Lynn, welcome to the panel discussion. Could I check with you, how does Obello use GenAI, and how do you all overcome the issues such as hallucination, the acceptance from the customer to make use of it, etc.? Yeah.
Yeah, so good question. At Obello, we are like a AI-powered graphic design platform. So you may heard about Figma, Canva, something like that, right? But for us, we are doing B2B, which is like brand-specific designs. And for that, we need a lot of like on-brand and high accuracy on generating campaigns or multiple formats. So if you, like, for example, initially before, if you want to create like a 20 size or 20 kind of format, different formats for a campaign, you may need like to hire an agency, or you may need to spend a lot of time to, you know, kind of like reorganize the headlines, the picture, and all that, logos and such. And each brand will have like different rules, like padding of logos, the colors, the brand voice, or something like that. Let's say if you take eBay, or like electronic arts, or like Nike or Adidas, they have like very specific and different kind of rules. So to generate such, layout for them and it at a large scale, it will need like special use of Gen AI, like multi AI agent with like steward kind of like monitoring and intervention. So back to your questions, like how do we manage the hallucination and reduce the inaccuracy of the generated? So first, we have our own proprietary models as well, on top of like using frontier model from like Claude or Gemini, something like that. We give each brand a specific workspace with a specific pre-trained data that is like learned from our customers' data. We also ask the designers to create like a human-made training, high-quality training. They are not scrapping from the internet. And most of all, we use like automated feedback loops. Like if it generates something, the users can just actually check like thumbs up or thumbs down. And our design, like for GenAI, normally it will generate a flat image. You cannot edit or like move things around or like change the color unless you prompt that again, right? But for us, we make it fully editable. So let's say you ask it to, hey, create me a marketing campaign for the winter sales or Christmas, then it will gather automatically in the brand asset like font, logos, colors, brand voice, and so on. And then learn from the reference designs and generate like a fully editable design that you can open, you can change the text inside it, you can change the graphic shape, vectors and all that. So that requires like human in the loop, steward monitoring, and multi-agent system with like a certain set of tools that allow them to use. Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like there are sufficient guardrails to prevent, and also tooling that allows the human in the loop to directly intervene where he feels necessary to do so. So
Yes.
With that, I agree with you that it is very frustrating sometimes for certain tools. You find an error in the graphic and you prompt and reprompt and it still doesn't know how to correct the thing properly. So yeah, the having the thing editable does help very much to make things productive, because in the end I found certain, like for this slide, I tried generating the image for the couple having the interactive interior decoration session using Copilot. It kept not following my instruction correctly, and I think I spent more time than it was worth. Then I went to another tool, I think Nano Banana, and it settled it very quickly. Yeah,
Also,
so
like
it helps.
one more last small thing is
Yes.
that like if you keep prompting that,
Yep.
because it will use your last generated output as the next input, and if you use like 5 times and above, it will lead to the model collapse.
Oh.
It will like signify the noise
Yeah.
of the generated output because you use the generated data to generate another and so on.
So the best thing is to start fresh again.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let me, there are quite a lot of questions coming. Let me give each of them to talk about their use cases first, then I'll go to the questions. Maybe Ivan, what's the use, how do you all use GenAI in cybersecurity, and how do you have this type of guardrails and ways to make it more productive for this usage?
Okay, so when I arrived 3 years ago at Test Engineering, cybersecurity was new to me. So I needed to study what the business is and how they work and what they do exactly. One of the things that ST Engineering does is build security operation centers, sell the solution to customers, and run them. How Security Operations Center works is that we will monitor IT infrastructure. All the logs are streamed to what we call SIEM, where particular detection rules for some vulnerabilities or some behavior are deployed, and when that behavior is detected, then there is an alert. Usually there are in around 1,000 to 2,000 alerts per day. and it takes an hour or two for a cybersecurity expert to investigate that alert. So what I did is to decompose the tasks that a cybersecurity expert is doing by subtasks and look at the ROIP. So what is the return of improved performance? For example, writing an incident report is something that actually brings a lot of added value to the customer. The better that report is written, the more actions that the customer can take that will actually mitigate the incident that happened. So what we then did is, after we decomposed all the tasks, we did a restructuring of what the cybersecurity expert is doing. And we built those actions as agentic tools. So meaning that AI agent can now consume the alerts and do the full investigation autonomously. And it's actually writing the report. It integrates with all the tooling that the analyst is using. And it will finalize the investigation end to end, write the JIRA tickets, write the reports. And essentially, today, what a human is doing in 2 hours, we are doing under 30 seconds. How do we mitigate hallucination? First of all, we do a fact-checking. Anytime the agents are generating something, we fact-check the actual information that is gathered from the system. On the end of the investigation, the human is required to take responsibility. So we're also checking for, are we in a risk of breaching SLA, and we are actually pushing those investigations up to the human to go in and take responsibility. The human can actually read all the steps that agents have taken and ask questions about that investigation and actually ask to change things. From that conversation and from the feedback from the human and also from the decision that the human is taking as final, we continue to evolve the system. As such, we actually, at one level, train the human and also train the system. And so, because another question is, today we are actually able to do with agents what level 1 and level 2 analysts are capable of doing. So the question is where the new level 3 analysts will come from if we don't train them in a way. So that's how we evolve the system and evolve the humans.
Okay, a lot of things to unpack. So what Ivan mentioned is that actually you can imagine if they have a human expert, it takes 2 hours to investigate the incident, each incident. And most cybersecurity ops centers, if things are coming in hot with a lot of, it may be multiple incidents happening at the same time. And if humans were to do it, they will miss a lot of them. So with the agent that can settle things within 30 seconds, even if the agent makes certain higher percentage of errors compared to human, the fact that the human already missed so many of it because they are so slow, it's already worthwhile to have the agent do it. But they are also right that if you let the agent do level 1, level 2 work, how do you get a recent graduate to jump to level 3 in the future? It's not possible. So they have this process where the human has to come in to review and check the results of the GenAI, and through that they gain the experience of level 1, level 2 to eventually become level 3, which is very important. Yeah. Adrian, for the use of GenAI for the data science area aspect. Yeah.
Okay, everyone can hear me, right? So first and foremost, I'm from Snowflake. How many people have heard of Snowflake? Not the icon from Frozen, but yeah. So just to give context for people who do not know what Snowflake is a data AI platform, right? So it was first started out as mainly data warehousing, right? And then what happens is that we evolve actually to incorporate a lot of our AI capabilities with the whole, generative AI wave, with the whole data engineering wave. So I think what happens now is that we have moved over from a data motion into a very AI-focused industry. So for instance, with certain customers, we've actually embedded a lot of the frontier models within the platform. You can use the frontier models with your data without actually, moving the data outwards or calling an API outwards, right? You can do it within the platform, and you can do it against, like, for example, any kind of data that you have stored within the platform, like unstructured, semi-structured, or even structured data from the angle. So I think two aspects where I'm seeing it here is that we are enabling AI for customers about how they actually can build incremental AI data products for their end customers, for instance, with insurance companies, or even with, like, for example, agriculture companies, right? They are also using AI to do, like, detection of, let's say, like, for example, stock inventory, things like this. There's also another perspective I want to give is that internally within Snowflake, we are adopting a lot of GenAI tools for our own individual productivity. And I'm not going to lie, I think it has greatly improved my productivity a lot. But there's, of course, some things that we probably need to watch out for on a daily basis, right? And what I mean is, like, we try, at least my personal basis is that I think we should not try and let AI take over every nook and cranny of our lives from that aspect. We kind of need to learn how to control it from the angle. It's a very powerful tool, but try not to overtake every aspect of what it's trying to, like, guide you towards to. Yeah, so two aspects where I come from.
Yeah, I believe in your case, your company's use of GenAI, it is similar to my slide, which talked about GenAI will hallucinate on doing data analysis tasks, and most of the time you will pass the data analysis task to actual statistical tools to run, and so I believe that's true, right?
Yeah, so to further expand on that, right? So what happens is that a lot of the Gen AI capabilities nowadays, right? No matter what, there is still an element of hallucination at the end of the day, right? Even if you give generative AI agent itself, like, too many tools, in fact, let's say you give it more than 15 tools access, sometimes it can call the wrong tools. And sometimes if you do not label the tool correctly, it will lead to it actually even invoking the wrong tool. So for example, instead of invoking 2.1, it invokes 2.2 or 2.3, 2.4, right, as accordingly, which is not the correct process. So that's where when we define tools, right, it's important that you define tools with actually proper, like, for example, description of the tool, what is the function of the tool. It's also to have proper semantics of the tool. For example, different tool descriptions or different tool namings is important so that the model can actually understand. At the end of the day, frontier models are still non-deterministic in nature. They're probabilistic models. They will only be able to understand an element when you actually input to the model. Yeah.
Okay, I will now try to address some of the questions that have come in, quite a lot of questions. Okay, in general, for all three, how do you go about quantifying the real business impact and value AI solutions provide after implementation? What are the indicators we can use? Obello probably will try to use it to market to their users to say you get it, and then similarly for cyber and all that. Yeah. So I think Ivan wanted to reply first. Yeah.
For us, it's very clear because you also manage security operation centers. Today, with that solution, we can actually run 10 customers instead of one with the same amount of people. Then, because we're able to investigate all the alerts and investigate them almost immediately, we can sign contracts that are with a higher value because we have a time to react, which is much shorter. Then there is another level is what I call noise, is that we are consistent with the level or the perfectionism of delivering our services. It doesn't matter if the analyst didn't sleep well or he had an argument with his wife. The system will always perform at the same level. So these are some of the things that we can quantify.
Okay. Obello, Lynn?
Okay, so from our side, it's like because our business nature is similar to Canva and Figma, right? So the more people or like the more businesses are using our product, the better it is. But we also like take some surveys, talking to our customers, and we have like seeing the the incremental performances, and the slowing down of the team. Like let's say before they need like a whole agency or like a design team of 10 people, now just need one, and the time to produce such a complete campaign only takes like reduced from 3 weeks to like 1 day or something like that. Yeah, so that's the where it comes from, and not just ROI in terms of money, but also time as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Just before I answer, to let you all start thinking for the answer for next question. Next question, I roll a few questions together. Is now that you mentioned that a lot of jobs seem to be disappearing, or you don't need so many people, what advice will you give to new graduates? Where should they go to, and so on? So you all can think about it while Adrian answers his way of the informing his customers or within his organization on the impact and benefits.
ROI is a very tricky term when we try to enunciate it to, let's say, how do we quantify benefits? Do we quantify in terms of, it's either going to be like, for example, time saved or revenue earned, right? I think those are elements there. So I guess for any generative AI project or any project for that matter, right? At the end of the day, we look at two elements. One is actually the amount of productivity, whether productivity has gone up. So for example, with actually building, let's say, a data agent or a data quality agent, has it reduced the amount of time that the data governance steward spends time in actually trying to actually create the data, go through the data, understand the catalog, understand the schema? I think that's actually one element from there. The other aspect is like, for example, of course, the revenue, right? For example, from a profit basis, how much profit does this product bring for me? And if I can build a product that is on top of generative AI and I launch it, right? What does it mean for me? So with a platform like Snowflake, like for example, some customers have built their own products, they have gone to their own customers to market out. That's where we're trying to see, like, for example, whether that actually has brought in that revenue from that perspective. Now, that one is more of a long-term goal, I would say. Then naturally, that's why I say that in part in ROI is definitely going to be more long-term as opposed to the productivity question, which can be more visible, perhaps in the short term from that angle. So two aspects from there. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So so one of the key takeaway from that is sometimes don't be so short-term minded for the benefits of GenAI. You may have to think of longer-term benefits also. Okay, back to the question. All of you have been indicating that one of the ROI is reduced manpower needs. So what do you recommend for a new graduate? What should they aim for so as not to be hit by all this impact of GenAI?
I will go first because I don't have a lot. So honestly, I don't know because I think most of the jobs are going to be this. Actually, there was a paper, Iceberg, if I remember correctly, where they analyzed all the jobs in USA and how they can be disrupted by AI, and basically most of the tasks that a human are doing can be taken over by AI. So I think it's very difficult to say what to study and where to go. I think it's very important to be able today to change directions, learn new skills, and I think the creative jobs will still exist, or in the way they are today. I haven't seen a model be truly creative other than reproducing some probability that it learned from some data. I personally will push my son to study either physics or mathematics or finance. So yeah.
Lynn?
Yeah. So from my side, like aside Obello, I have like personal research interest in AI control, alignment, and safety as well. Not in security like Dr. Ivan, but more like alignment with human values, and also longer terms of like how do we make it safety, especially in the future if AGI is there. So I think from my advice to the graduate is that they will need to learn more and pick up more niche skills, not like they need to be very excellent or be the best person, but like combination of different skills. And one of them is research, and the other can be like a product mindset. So from what I find is that like GenAI can be very good at execution, what you give them, right? But intuition and like experience are like not what it does very well. Yeah. So let's say if you want to do some product and you don't know like what the users need, even if you use 10 GenAI, it's amount to nothing, right? And aside from research problem, because research is like uncharted territory, right? So GenAI can only help you gather latest research, analyze, and do some implementation for that. But the idea has to come from you. So to have that, you have to read a lot, like go a lot, and just get your hands dirty, and don't be afraid of like the AI replacement if you know what you're good at. Yeah.
Adrian?
Yeah. So I'm going to refer to a post. I think one of the, I think it was, I was reading online. Like, so if you guys have played the game Black Myth, okay, I'm guessing maybe not many people have played here Black Myth. So it's a video game by by China, right? I think one of the studies that was actually done, there was actually the question was asked to the CEO, like, what is his perspective on AI disrupting, especially in the video game industry, right? Because now, if you look at where, like, Seed Dance is going and all the various Gen AI tool, it can replace a lot of things, right? And even maybe it can replace certain components within some video games. I think the CEO actually pointed out something which is very relevant, which is number one, he says that at the end of the day, all these generative AI models are trained on one thing, data, vast amount of data, past data, right? But they're not trained on creativity, they're not trained on experience, right? To Lynn's point earlier. So you can give it as much information as you like, but the problem is that if you do not steer the model to what is needed for what you need to do, then in that purpose, it doesn't make sense. So to that point, I feel that Gen AI or AI tooling in general is something that it should not be feared. If rather see how you can actually use it for your own leverage instead. If I can use AI to build something that is beneficial, let's say for my own startup, or even let's say I build it, let's say to increase my productivity, right? That's where I would say it's actually important. Now on to the next part about like job security and as well what's the future, right? For this portion, I feel that at the end of the day, experience is one thing, but also I think a need to be curious is actually very important because if you don't understand like why something is working, and this fundamentally works across any industry, be it tech, science, banking, finance, doesn't matter, right? If you don't really have a keen industry knowledge to understand why or how something operates or how it works, I mean, I give you 10 generative AI tools, it doesn't help you at the end of the day, to be honest. It only will help if you're able to actually stitch all of these capabilities and guide it to what you need. So my perspective on that. Yeah.
I want to follow up on this. Actually, I think the future is not so bad. I want to reference to what I'm doing. So I'm hiring people for my lab today, and I find myself hiring more fresh grads than seniors. Why? Because we're using GenAI for code generation, and that's an amplifier. So with less seniors, we can actually do the same work, the same quality. They are just supervised by those seniors. And another thing, just to follow up on what you said, is that I feel that a lot of people that have a lot of experience, they have a technical baggage, and that's why I prefer fresh grads, because they are more open-minded. They actually sometimes surprise even me in the way they are approaching technical problems. As in people that have a lot of experience, that have done things in a certain way, they always keep in their mindset, so or in the way of doing things. So I don't think the future is so negative, but the way we will do things will definitely change.
You just nicely led into the next question, which is if you have existing employees, or in Obelo's case, your client has existing employees, and they are now going to implement GenAI, how do you enable the digital transformation in the mindset of this staff, so that you get good utilization of the new way of doing things and so on. Yeah. Anyone can start. Is fine.
Maybe I can start first. I
Yeah.
mean, give these two a little break. So, at least on my part, maybe I can tell you guys how I've been using Gen AI for my guys. So I lead a team, right, of actually architects within Snowflake. So I think as was pointed out earlier, we're using Gen AI in every aspect of our life, like for example, for code generation, to doing POCs, to doing demos, whatever it is. The key thing which I'm seeing here is that we have become very outcome focused, right? I think previously what happens is that we were always concerned about, can we do this element? Could we do this aspect? There was always this question in our mind. But I think with all these generative AI tools, actually, and even with a coding assistance, right, it actually has led us to become very outcome focused, right? We ask like, what do you want to achieve from an outcome perspective, and then we steer towards that outcome. So, and if you see, that's where actually even there are new jobs appearing, right, in the industry, right? I'm sure that people have heard about forward deployed engineers as well as outcome-based engineers, right? These are new kind of jobs that are appearing because they're focused on outcomes for the customer. They're not really caring about technical elements or everything. They want to see what is your outcome, how do we achieve your outcome from that perspective. So that's how we have been using Gen AI within our ecosystem, and how we actually been adopting across the board, be it like productivity or even for technical demos or things like this. Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to do next?
Okay, so in my case, you're right. Like sometimes some of the agency or designs company, they would need to cut costs by reducing employees, but on the other hand, we can leverage that by using, reallocate different resources to new initiative and doing multiple things at once, but at that company, not like working multiple jobs. But yeah, what I meant is that like there's always like a silver lining for that, and like instead of like okay, I have like X hours on spending on something, but now because of these tools, I can have like 200% of productivity increment, thus leading to like increment in revenue and all that, and outreach. Yeah.
Maybe I'll come back to you on, is it today's Straits Time or yesterday's, talking about OPC, China, pushing for OPC. Anyone read the article? OPC stands for one person company, aided by AI, and then a single person can actually run a company that used to have to require a team of employees and so on. Yeah. So what Lin was saying is maybe some of these people who get retrenched actually can become one piece OPCs and so on, and maybe get a better salary and work-life balance out of it. Yeah, Ivan, for the mindset of your existing employees and so on.
I also want to comment on that. Actually, Y Combinator already 3 or 4 months ago, they were looking for founders to what they call it AI native companies that are one person company, and all the rest is done by AI. I think that there is also just one company that was valuated in $1 billion, that also was a one guy that did everything with agents. So that's definitely one very interesting thing to look out for. Yeah, the human mindset is or their way of reacting to the changes in the digital space is very interesting, and sometimes it's blocking actually. If I have to be honest, when I analyzed the security operations centers, I would have different discussions with different people, and I would not continue some of the discussions because I found that they were quite close-minded. And a lot of people, when you ask them about how we can change things, they will actually talk about their immediate problems, and they will not think open-mindedly how we can actually redesign how we do things and be more effective. So, but that's the human nature. So I think to what I was saying earlier, we need to learn to change how we do things and to learn new things on very regular basis. Yeah.
Yep, agreed. Okay, maybe we have take two more questions and then we will end for today. Uh, let you have some time to think of the last question, which is, what do you think are the top 3 critical success factors for any Gen AI project? Then I will start on another question first. Does Gen AI tools implemented in companies have to be converted to financial benefits? Do we need to make CIOs change their mindset from dollars to intangible benefits? This one is very staff oriented. Say free time equals happy employee equals higher retention equals stable business. Okay, yeah. So any of you?
I can take that one first.
Okay,
The
yeah.
productivity. I guess for CIO's mindset, right, at the end of the day, they will always be measuring, like, for example, they always be putting a dollar value to certain things, lah, right? And this is how companies work at the end of the day, right? To a company, it's always dollars and cents, how much is actually equitable to the shareholders, so on and so forth, lah. Especially for public related companies, so on and so forth, right? And this is how it works. I'm not sure if it will change down the line, to be honest. I wish I had that crystal ball and I wish I can, change the mindsets of a certain CI. I wish I could do that, but I can't. But I think definitely my perspective is that it has been changing certain perspective about even how CIOs have been actually measuring productivity on a day-to-day basis, right? So my strong belief is that right now, productivity is something that is at the top of the minds of the CIOs, but the whole reason why they still haven't been able to really measure certain projects so far is because from an ROI perspective, it's a long-term thing, right? Like I was mentioning before, it's not really 100% a short-term thing. I can't measure an employee's productivity in terms of the hours saved, like overnight, like today. I can't do that. Maybe it will take me a year for me to measure it because there's a lot of factors from the angle. Yeah, that's my perspective.
But if in case your companies have high turnover and all that, does it help? Maybe we'll pass that question to Lynn and Ivan. Yeah.
Okay. In my case, we have a teams of platform engineer, front end, back end, and also AI engineer and ML engineer, right? So we gave them like tools like Codex or like Claude Code or something like that. So it can help them to implement faster and run experiment faster, because as you can see right now, the AI landscape is growing quickly, and if you wake up tomorrow, there's something new, right? And it's impossible for a human to be 24/7 awake and catching up with the news. So what I find very beneficial for our staff is that like to have something like an agent system for them internally to digest all the news, research, and relevant papers, so that they can choose which one to make experiments on, and eventually translate it to revenue and kind of like things that our investors are looking for, because VCs they always look for what is new, what is disruptive, and beneficial. Yeah.
So it's a bit like Steve Jobs' mindset, but his was different. If the customer is happy, you don't need to worry. Eventually, the revenue will come in. So the other take on it is if the staff is happy, you also don't need to worry. The revenue will come in. Yeah, Ivan?
Yeah, I think it depends, but I think we don't need to chase a dollar sign behind everything that we do. It was just said, if the customer is happy, there will be less attrition. Attrition costs money to the company. If you need to hire new people, you need to form them, you need to pay for recruiters, you need to work them in. So there are different ways of figuring out what the attribution of this AI application to the company is, then you can either look at it as applying AI to reduce the cost, but you can also look at it as a multiplier. So you can do new things, or you can do things faster. You can try to go to the market with new products, do faster cycles. So there are a lot of ways of measuring what that is bringing to the company. And to try to go to the last question.
Maybe for the last question, each one critical success factor first. Then if then we see whether we can do 3 different success factors if we go a few rounds. Yeah. Okay. One critical success factor.
Yeah. There isn't a single success factor that I will name, but what I will say is when you start a proof of concept, for example, with AI, you need to know what you're trying to improve and what you're trying to achieve. And while you're doing it, you need to measure if you are achieving that or not. And only then it's a successful AI project. It's not by saying, I feel that a lot of people are the South Bay sprinkling AI all over the place and saying, okay, I have an AI sticker on it, let's try it out. No, when you start the AI project, you need to know what you are looking to achieve, and then you figure out how to achieve it, and you measure if you are able to achieve it, and then you translate it into a true project or a production project. But just starting and saying, okay, let's try it out, I don't feel that's a good approach to do it.
Okay. Yep. Ding.
Yeah, for me, like the other one aspect that I think of is scalability. Because we are a startup, so we often do something like, okay, it works for 10 users, 100 users, but when it scales to 1,000 or 10,000 users, it starts to slow down, like having bottlenecks and all that. So the scalability and stability is very important. Imagine if you use like a full pipeline that has multiple AI agent in betweens and maker and checkers and something like that, and then there's data pipeline, and you get stuck, the whole thing gets stuck, right? So for me, like scalability is one aspect.
Yeah. So critical success factor, don't just be happy that the experiment with a small number of users can work. Be careful whether it can scale up. Yep. Adrian?
I was going to say what you were saying originally, right? Which is how do we measure it? But you took it. Then I thought about scalability, and she took it. So I think I only have one thing left to say. I think for any kind of like small projects, it doesn't mean be GenAI or AI related, or it can be even a data project, right? Because we do a lot of data project with customers, right? I think the key aspect as well, especially when we're doing like POCs or things like this, is that within the timeline, what do we want to achieve, right? Objectively. Now, we can't test everything under the sun if we're doing, like, say, a proof of concept, let's say for 2 months, right? There needs to be clear outcomes that we need to understand, and then we tick off those items within that time element period. So, of course, I think that timeline is shiftable. But of course, if it's very shiftable, like for example, up to 8 months, then already you can tell that it's like, okay, is this really critical or not really critical from that aspect, right? So I think when we time bound it, and then we know really very clearly, like for example, what are the areas that we need to actually achieve within this element, and it makes us very targeted to what we need to do. Yeah.
Okay, great.